All right, so we haven't watched a DOS food video in a very, very long time. And they're also aware of our presence and very kind to us, so we appreciate them bunches. So right now, more than ever, please make sure you hit that link that just appeared in the chat or down in the description below if you're watching on YouTube to subscribe and like to DOS Food, because Homie makes very, very good content and has been always very kind to us. And that is, you know, we need more kind content creators out there in the community, as you've seen with people who do not do that. Yeah, this video of theirs is specifically talking about the best killer powers in Dead by Daylight, and if Huntress isn't on here, I'm gonna cry. So, yeah.
All right, welcome in, friends. I'm DOS Food, and I haven't been missing. You've been gone a while. No, but jokes aside, I have taken a new job. I've been very, very busy, so my schedule has definitely suffered as a result, but I promise I'm going to try to get back on that grind and get you your videos a little more frequently. Now, for today's topic, I wanted to do something kind of positive, because I ended the chapter grades one on a bit of a negative note. It was a bit of a, you know, oh, I'm just not really feeling the game right now. So I thought, let's turn around. Let's do something positive. Let's look at the best powers that have been given to the killers in Dead by Daylight. One thing I want to note when I talk about this is that it is incredibly hard to design powers for a game like this. And honestly, it's one thing I think the devs deserve a lot.
One thing I pointed out to myself when I was playing last night, like I was watching Uzi's stream, and Uzi fought like 15 Pyramid Heads last night. It was kind of weird. And I was thinking, like, Pyramid Head kind of, like, defined killer design for, like, the next 3 years. Not consistently, but almost consistently. How many characters from that point on? I mean, I guess it goes all the way back to Plague, realistically. So 4 years, go all the way back to Plague. How many characters are, I apply a status effect, and then bad thing happens? I guess we go all the way back to Plague, 4 years. How many characters have been, I apply bad stats effect, bad thing happens? Pyramid Head, Artist, Twins with the Hindered, New Guy, Singularity, goop you, and then I can teleport to you. Dredge with Nightfall. I gotta think who else was released. Wesker with the Ouroboros. Nemesis. Like, for the next 4 years, they've basically made a variation of the I apply status effect and then bad things happen. The character. Like, I give you, you now have a thing, you have a change to your portrait, and then bad things happen. The character. For years. Years. Literal years. So, I don't know. Yeah, they've kind of recycled for the most part. Like, whatever you apply does something different, killer to killer. But it's mostly just, you're now affected with a thing, and now bad thing happens. And it's been that way for years. Literally years.
I had a much harder time coming up with the alternative to this list, which was the worst powers in Dead by Daylight. This one was actually hard to narrow down to 5, because frankly, there are a lot of really quality powers, which is to say that if you don't see your favorite killer in here, who knows, maybe I really like their power and I just don't consider it cream of the crop, but certainly not bad.
Push new policy, they're going the route of YouTube
in this game,
where they're just trying to like cozy up with companies and not their creators, which is some kind always
of like a criteria, I guess. So my criteria was as follows. I made a little list, and it says a good power should, and it has 4 things. It should feel satisfying to use on the killer's end. It should allow for meaningful counterplay from survivors.
You're going to lose a lot on that one.
A noticeable and substantive skill ceiling. And finally, it should facilitate purposeful gameplay. Some of that is
YouTube does enforce it, just not consistently.
Verbose, maybe a little overly wordy, but I feel like the points are pretty clear there. So instead
but they actually had it first.
Intro, we're going to get right into this one, and we're going to go from 5 to 1. But first, I do want to give some honorable mentions. So when we talk about the honorable mentions, I want to start off with Plague, who very nearly made my top 5 because I like how she mixes up gameplay. Facing the Plague is just unlike facing anybody else.
It's boring.
Even somebody like...
No, that's the second part. The counterplay, like I know you have that aspect of like you can like choose to cleanse or choose not to cleanse, but just like not being able to heal at all ever, like that's just like part of Survivor gameplay that's just completely gone. Like one of the other things you can do besides just sit on gens is just completely gone. So there's an aspect of that is just like, it removes a lot of gameplay from the game. From a killer aspect, yeah. From a killer side, oh yeah. Oh yeah. But like from a survivor perspective, she's kind of, yeah. Hey, Cola King, how's it
Oni
going? How are you,
or
homie?
maybe Legion, who also encourage you not to heal. It's just really not comparable to what the Plague does. The Plague takes out one of the core aspects of the game.
I'd rather
For
fight
whatever
Oni
reason,
than
it
Plague.
actually makes it kind of fun, and you have to decide, are you going to risk it and play injured, or are you going to give her an advanced form of her power? I also do think that
It's a lose-lose.
kind of gets misunderstood as somebody who maybe doesn't require as much skill as she actually does, but the top tier Plagues are pretty clearly head and shoulders above the others.
Yeah, the Plague community is really sweaty.
I like this character, and
Really
I
sweaty.
think she's really, really neat. Maybe she's at number 6 on here.
I'm damn right.
But for now, we're just going to call it an honorable mention. I also like Pyramid Head. I gave him
Pyramid
an
Head,
honorable mention as well. And though I know that he's really good for tunneling, he's also really good for diversifying your gameplay. And
If
you want to
when a
talk
Pyramid is not zoning, he could be one of the most fun killers to face in the game. Dodging his shots is exhilarating. Absolutely exhilarating. I love facing a good Pyramid Head.
about a skill ceiling, you have to talk about Pyramid Head. Pyramid Head's skill ceiling is ridiculous. A top tier Pyramid Head feels so oppressive, but not in the same way that a top tier Nurse, Blight, or Spirit does. I like that Pyramid Head.
Yeah,
is
you're like,
able to
oh, good
counter
shot,
some
and
of the
not
stronger
like,
things on the Survivor side of the
oh,
thing,
cringe, you know,
of the aisle of the thing. That was a good term. No, I like what Pyramid Head brings to the table. I think he's really fun. Another one I really like is Hillbilly. I think Hillbilly's great.
Yep.
Hillbilly is really
Hillbilly's
only
probably the
not
most
in the top 5 because he's so rough that
yeah.
if I'm gonna make this criteria where
It's
I
on
say
the other end.
part of it is that it has to feel good on the killer's end.
Yeah, he
Billy
doesn't feel
feels good when he feels good, right? When you get the chainsaws, it's great. When you get a cross map chainsaw, it's even better. I mean, it's euphoric. But when it's not that, when you're missing out on getting your downs because it takes just a little too long to rev the chainsaw, or, you know, you're getting penalized for revving the chainsaw, which is, again, just a
But this
ridiculous
video,
mechanic.
best killer
There
powers.
should be no overheat on Hillbilly. I'm going to die on this hill. But outside of that,
Agreed.
you know, there's a lot to like here. It is fun to zoom around the map.
You know what's funny? If you just put on heavy clutch base kit, a lot of this goes away. That's the funny part. He has an add-on that fixes a lot of what Dasu just said, but it's an add-on you are forced to run, which compromises his most fun add-ons being the engravings. You would have to give up some of that. And it's just like, you just make the add-on base kit. just do it, please.
It's fun to hit chainsaws. I like the little sound he makes when you go. You know, it's nice.
Ah.
Good, but man, it's a shame to me that he's not quite a little bit higher. We then
You know they did that for tactical reasons? They did that for tactical reasons because survivors were apparently unsure when he was actually going to release his chainsaw. So they did that to give you an audio cue to dodge.
Wesker, and look, here's the thing. I am so sick of playing against Wesker.
Yeah.
And honestly, I don't necessarily always enjoy playing as him because
I've kind of lightened up on Wesker because Wesker's is like, I don't know, like his hitbox is still jank and you get hit by you have no right to be hit by a lot and it's really annoying. And obviously you get those Weskers that just use the killer instinct from you know, spraying to just hyper tunnel. Those guys suck. But the people who are like Ace, for example, that just like are actually trying to, you know, like a la Billy, try to, you know, see the character's max potential and actually going for things can be really, really fun. Really, really fun. So it's kind of a half and half for me.
Gosh darn it, man. It is so janky. It's just wacky. But, you know, people love this character, and I wanted to give a bit of a shout out here. Look, Wesker's cool. I wouldn't say that he's necessarily one of my favorites, but he is one of the community's favorites, and I see why. He's
like
a
half and
more
half.
balanced version of the Nurse, and I think that's pretty cool.
That's a
And
good way
then
to put it.
finally,
That's a good way to
for
put
the
it.
honorable mentions, we have a very controversial pick, that being the Doctor. I really like the Doctor.
Yeah, I like
enjoy
facing
playing
Doctor.
as him. I think there's a lot to like
He's
about
so
this
simple
kid,
that,
and I really
like-
do think he brings something new to the table, and that he's essentially just a killer that says, nope, you're not going to stealth on me. You're not going to.
Yeah, like he's so simple that like I actually don't hate fighting doctors that much. Yeah, like he's not actually that bad to face. Actually, like he's fun to play because, you know, timing your shocks, you know, to deny loops, and also like counterplaying that is like, should I throw, should I not throw? Like he's actually pretty alright.
Force your way around the map, and honestly, it's pretty fun. He's not really the strongest killer, but I do think he tends to get underrated when people start talking about who's strong and who's not. Not to say he's A tier, but
He's
you know,
a solid B tier.
probably. He's
Yeah,
a
he's
solid
like
enough
low B,
killer,
high
and
C.
There's just
That's a good
something
place
so
for him.
satisfying about the zapping, the giggling, the whole thing. It's a fun package, and obviously on the survivor side of the equation, you can certainly counter him. So a lot to like there, and I'm actually a pretty big Doctor fan. But that was the list of honorable mentions. So what I want to do now is
Like when I
move
get a
into the
Herman, I'm
main
like, oh,
list.
a
We're
Herman.
going
You know, I'm not
with
like,
number
ugh, a
5,
Herman.
the pig. Now let's get this out of the way, right? Yes, Amanda the pig is on the
She's bottom 5 in the game. Okay,
side.
elaborate.
Nobody's going to deny that, or most people aren't.
Bottom 5 in the game, not just the weaker side.
I think that despite being kind of weak, most of her abilities are actually fairly well done. I like a lot of what she brings to the table. I think that her dash attack is actually a lot stronger than people think. And there was a time where I thought it was kind of useless, but if you watch somebody like Scorpions playing the pig, there's definitely usage for this ability. And also it really opens the door for skillful play. This is a character that the better you get, the more you're going to be able to show that off, which is not the same necessarily for every killer.
Not really. I feel like he's vastly overstating the M2. Vastly overstating that M2. You know how you get around this? You pre-drop. You look and see which way she's trying to mind game, and then you pre-drop. That's how you get around that. It's easily circumventable. I think
disagree with me. For example, not that I hate this character.
I think you're vastly overstating it.
Main for me, but I think that
I used a secondary pig. When I first started playing this game, I was a Myers pig main. That's what I did. I played Myers and pig. I've been there. I've been down this route. That M2, they just stare at you and they go, okay, she's moon dashing, and then pallet down, you know. It's like
a really, really good nemesis versus just a good nemesis. I don't know that comes down as much to the nemesis power as much as it does knowledge of the game itself. Whereas the difference between a top tier pig and just a good pig is going to be knowing how to play the pig specifically. So I do think this is a killer that allows for skillful play. And another thing that I really like about the pig is that she does introduce a secondary objective. And what's cool about this one,
like the hats. Now that the hats have guaranteed, like a guaranteed 12 count of searches, she got way better. She's still bottom 5 though.
Harder to get going than some of the secondary objectives, like the aforementioned nemesis, or like the Cenobite or somebody like that. You get the secondary objective and it's a little harder to get going. You have to down somebody and you have to put the helmet on them, and then they have to go search the boxes. But because it's a little harder, it is more pressing and potentially deadly. And I think that's cool. I really enjoy what the reverse bear traps bring to the table in this game. Really, when I look at this killer, what I see is I would say only 2 real downsides. One of those being the crouch, which, you know, it's great that she can lose her terror radius, but at the cost of going that slow, I'm just not sure it's worth it. And then there's the issue of her roar. I really wish that she wouldn't roar.
Making her stealth aspect stronger would probably
just be left up to hearing the sound.
Making her stealth aspect stronger would probably be the way to actually bring her out of being bottom 5 in the game. Because Wraith can cloak and just speed across the map at Mach speed, completely invisible, no terror radius, and like just Pig has to like bust her knees, like ow, 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 like just night and day.
Sound of her weapon unsheathing, because that is a distinct sound. I really don't think it's that hard to notice, and the roar is just so blatant. It's like, you're about to be attacked, whereas the sheath is just kind of like, hey, there's a pig in the area, which I don't know. I mean, it's a subtle thing, but I would say if they were to improve the crouch and the roar, remove the roar, improve the crouch, yeah, I think that'd be a good thing. But overall, no matter what they do, I do think the pig is actually rather well designed, and overall, she earns her place at number 5 on this list. At number 4, we have the Cenobite.
Oh, Reaper would be so happy.
First and foremost, before you give me these dislikes, I know.
I mean, if he weren't so aggressively anti-solo queue or anti-grouping, I would agree. But he's like, one of the categories for this is like fun to play against, and as a group maybe, but in like not, if you're not together, yeah, it gets pretty rough. It gets pretty rough. I feel like he is a character that kind of preys on a lack of coordination or a lack of people on comms. And like, I don't know. I feel like any character that kind of just like preys on already the weakest form of gameplay in the game, which is solo queue, like, that's...
He said, it's not Pinhead's fault that so many survivors are absolutely brain dead. This is a good secondary objective. This referring to the Lament.
It's good strength-wise.
It's a good secondary objective. Most people just stink at prioritizing. They're just really
They don't stink. They're not in comms. Huh? They just stink? They just suck? No, they don't have coordination because these people could be a 4 solo. These could be 4 solos or like a duo and 2 solos. It's not that they stink, it's just that there's no way to tell. There's no way to communicate what's happening. That's not stupidity. That's just like, I don't know how to tell them that I'm going for the box. So we end up sending like 3 people for the box, and only 1 person ends up getting it. And now the injured person has the box. And why did the injured person go grab the box? I was already on my way to get it, so was she. And now we're just all across map, and nobody's on a gen because we don't have comms. And now the injured person's doing the box, and now the pinhead's just going to chase them down and just take the box from them. And now we're all screwed because of her mistake. Like, that's why. It's not stupidity. It's the lack of coordination that they can't communicate.
At picking up on, hey, somebody's got to go do it. I think that the lament configuration is actually a really cool mechanic, and it's a good reminder for me that whenever survivors start talking about, oh, we really won't secondary.
That's true, Daddy. That'd be an easy way to mitigate that.
I'm not sure they're
like a kindred for
I'm
it.
not sure they're aware of what they're saying, because it seems to me like they're pretty upset about a secondary objective being added. So I'm not gonna go into that whole tangent, but just, you know, be intellectually consistent either way. And I try to be. So I used to really kind of dislike the Cenobite, but then I started playing more and more Cenobites. And look, I will say this, for whatever reason, yes, Cenobite players tend to be pretty mean. They tend to
do for whatever reason,
as quickly as possible, yada yada yada. But we're not talking about the reputation of the players. We're talking about the actual power design.
Well, that lends itself, like, the base kits lend themselves to what they're capable of, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, he wants to separate that, but like, you don't see people doing that on other characters because they don't have the ability to do it as well, right? So I think if a population allows a certain population of a killer main base allows like a certain, like this character in specific, people who main this character seem to play really mean. You could argue that a lot of that is because the base kit lends itself to that play style, you know?
About what behavior the devs actually have control over. And when it comes to that aspect, I think they did a great job. I think the Cenobite is really well designed.
Yeah, he is well designed, but you can't argue that he's not anti-solo queue and anti-communication.
Did this dude just say Pinhead is well designed?
Like, I don't think he's poorly designed. I think that he's very well thought out killer. I just think he's aggressively anti-coordination, which is already the weakest roles of play in the game, which is like solo queue or barely queued survivors. Like the tier list goes like solo queue, like M1 killers, like duos, and then like M2 killers, and then like, you know, trio or trios, then like the strongest killers, and then like 4-man Swift, which is significantly above. So the fact that he punishes what is already the weaker roles in the game, I don't know if I would consider that, like, it's good design in effectiveness, but it's punishing people who are already suffering, so it's kind of like a...
Trying to dodge chains is legitimately fun. I think it's a good time. I really enjoy facing Cenobite players. And while it's true that, yes, God tier Cenobites can make it a bit of a foregone conclusion, I think that really skilled survivors can also make it to where it's not a foregone conclusion. If you can outsmart the Cenobite, you are going to avoid that chain, which is kind of fun because it's not the same.
Until the box hunting Pinhead goes and hunts down the box, then you have to deal with the chains, even though you didn't do anything wrong because you're not in a 4-man. So, you know, Fong Min went and grabbed the box while she was injured, and now she goes down, and now you have to deal with chains, even though you didn't do anything wrong. So this whole like noble like statement of like, hey, if you're just better than the Pinhead, you just win is not the truth, because he has a base kit which inherently affects the 3 other players for one player's mistake or one player's lack of comms, not even a true mistake, but a lack of communication. That's not
ways like Spirit, where it's
it'd be nice if it
50-50
worked that way, but it doesn't.
And you're just guessing. There is an intuitive nature to it. You do have to guess when the chain's going to come out, what angle it's going to come out, where are they most likely expecting you to be. There's a little more to it, and you do get that slight moment where you're able to try to dodge it once it's launched. So overall, yeah, I think dodging chains is fun. I understand where some people may not like it as much, but I'm a pretty big fan of it. And yeah, I think this one mostly does come down to the lament configuration. And for me, I think playing around the box is very unique and demands players bring a different approach than normal, right? It's going to be different from your other games, and I enjoy that about it. And ideally, I mean, something that is ideal, I should say, is that bad killers actually won't get much value out of the box. Bad players, I mean. So from a balance perspective, it's not busted. You have to be pretty good.
It's not busted, but it's
managing
aggressively
element
anti-solo
configuration,
queue.
And
That's
I
the
enjoy
difference.
that. I enjoy that, the best pinheads on Earth can make your time pretty rough because they're going to juggle that box like crazy. But the bad ones, nah, they're never going to get that advantage out of it unless you literally do nothing on your end. In short, this is a killer with the potential to be nasty, but with, honestly, I would say an A+ design. I really, really like a lot about the power here, and I kind of wish people were a little warmer to Pinhead and Shatterer because I think they're fun. Next, at number 3, we have one that should surprise.
What is simpler than I race hatchet, I throw hatchet? Like, if they could, if somehow they could make it to where her hitbox is not as crappy when it comes to lag, I don't know how they would do that. She would literally be the perfect killer design. Which is a gross character. It's okay to be wrong, Volgan. Everybody has shit takes. It's okay. You could even have multiple if you want. It's okay. It's all right. If they could literally solve the beach ball situation somehow, what is there to complain about this killer? Like literally, if you somehow solve the beach ball situation that happens with lag, what's wrong with her? Huck throw. I throw hatchet. That's it. it goes burr. No, it's not even her hitbox is tasty. That's what I'm talking about, Typod, is like that's not the hitbox. That is lag affecting the hitbox. The hitbox makes sense and is fine. It's just that under the effects of lag, it doesn't actually expand. But because the server doesn't know where it is, like 2 beach balls next to each other is kind of a big deal. What are the 2 killers you instantly DC from? She's most played character in the game. You just amount like an hour DC penalty, and then you're just like, I'm done.
Absolutely nobody. That is the Huntress. So
yeah, that's lag type on. That's not.
Start with this. The sound design team nailed this one. There's so
the
much.
splush upon hitting something.
Sound design from the lullaby, which is chilling. It's iconic. It's one of the most iconic aspects of Dead by Daylight. To the sound of the hatchets hitting somebody. I think that is just fabulous. And really, I could stop on that one. I could stop on just the sound of the hatchets hitting. That sound almost like it's going into a pool of water or something. Like it's just kind of this pleasant little. I don't know. It is a fantastic thing, and especially when you get a cross map or something. I mean, that sound is just music to your ears, and it's fantastic. They really knocked it out of the park with this one. It's a very, very well designed killer, just from a sound perspective alone. But of course, we're talking about the powers here, and I only mentioned the sound design there because the hatchets are her power, and you get that sound by using her power. But let's go beyond that. Let's talk a little more about it. So I think when you talk about the power of the Huntress, which is of course very simple, very straightforward. It's just throwing hatchets.
Yeah, it's simple. It just goes.
Killer, where if you hit one projectile, it injures the survivor. This simplicity actually makes room for the Huntress to have possibly the highest skill ceiling of any killer.
I think this is where most killer designs suffer too. Is like they're trying to make like you look at killer power descriptions. They go all the way down the page now. Like. I really wish they would focus more on going back to make simple killer designs instead of just like this overcomplicated stuff with like 30 status effects and like it's funny that in the back to back we had this conversation about how Pinhead's very, very complicated and that's good, but Huntress is very, very simple, which is good. It's like I wish we had more of the latter, not the former.
I think probably the highest skill ceiling of any killer. Though, if we're being fair, and we are, I'm going to say that skill ceiling is somewhat limited by, ironically, actual ceilings. Indoor maps are not the Huntress's friend. However, you can still make pretty insane plays on places like Larry's or Midwich. It's not out of the question. It's just, you're not going to get a cross map or something, right? And speaking of cross maps, I do think that this is probably the best use of a lullaby for any character in the game, which is why we call it a lullaby, because she was the first one. So, like what Sadako has, is it really a lullaby? No.
But I don't think she should have one.
Call it a lullaby. But this time out, in terms of giving the survivors room for counterplay, this was a really good call to make it so that if the Huntress is within a wide swath,
like it's Rise Wraith not have a lullaby, but Sadako does.
That gap, she becomes terrifying. She's deadly from a distance, sure, or I guess she's dangerous from a distance, but deadly from up close. And I think that most people could agree that Huntress is one of those where, yes, like most of them, if you go up against an absolute god tier player, it's going to feel like there's nothing you can do, but really,
a sick poncho.
Good survivors are going to be able to, they're going to dive, duck, dip, dive, and dodge, and they're going to make the Huntress's time a little harder. So I think there is a fun cat and mouse element to it, even more so than most killers have. And overall, Huntress is.
I always say this: playing Huntress, as and against Huntress, is like getting to know each other, because everybody dodges Huntress hatchets differently. So it's like you gotta get to know each other. Most of what Huntress like gameplay comes down to is that her predicting you and you predicting her. It's like you're getting to know each other. It's a very like organic like gameplay flow. Just nice.
Tremendously designed. I had a really hard time deciding between number 2.
Yeah,
and
demo's like the
perfectly
perfect design killer.
I
to be
kind of
honest.
went back and forth a lot. So
he's like
let's go on in.
the most BS tier killer, but it's because he's he's just designed so average.
But anyway, number 2, we are going to go with the Demogorgon. And look, this one
he has anti-chase with his shred, and he has map pressure, but it's through portals that he has to set up, so it's not like it's free map pressure. He has a tool for everything. He really does, and none of these tools are so like aggressively strong that they're like OP or non-counterable. So
in my notes, I just put epitome of balance. This is the epitome of balance when it comes to Dead by Daylight. There is so much to like about what they did here because it rewards high-level play while being accessible to newer players, which, I mean, sadly, that is ironic because
you can't buy them anymore.
Because we're going on years of demo not being sold in the store anymore, tragically. But a player who decides to just pick up the Demogorgon and start playing as the Demogorgon right now would initially be able to find some kind of success, usually
exactly
with the shred ability. However, as you start playing Demogorgon more and more, you realize, hey, I can cover a lot of distance if I use shred at this particular part of the map. Hey, I can hit around this angle just barely. I can just barely clip them. I have time to hit this. Hey, I guess portals. Portals would be the big one, right? If you want to separate a pro Demogorgon or a really skilled Demogorgon from a less skilled or newer Demogorgon,
the shred? What's wrong with the shred?
Do they use their portals? Because the portals make all the difference in the world. And they're what take Demogorgon from being somebody, I don't know. I mean, realistically, Demogorgon would almost be a lot like Deathslinger if it didn't have the portals, right? It's just instead of reeling people to them, it launches towards them. Kind of like Blight in that regard, I suppose. A lot of the killers are kind of similar to varying degrees, but by giving the portals, the Demogorgon can teleport around the map, and it can do so with great creativity because Freddy will never be creative with his teleporting, right? I mean, sure, you can bait going to a teleport and then try to cut off another survivor, but your actual teleporting, it will never be creative. The Demogorgon, though, you can put your portals in all kinds of places, and they do. They do get rather creative with them.
Especially on
that's just really
2-4 maps where you can get the reading under it. That's just fun.
A lot to work with here. But from the survivor perspective,
it's like what Skull Merchant does, except not bull
powers. If it's just miserable for the other side, well, I guess it's not that fun of a power, right? Survivors do have this unique thing where they get to try to bait out shreds, which I think can be
it's super
rather
fun.
And they also get to seal portals. So they have to choose. Do I sit here on this generator while I know there's a portal right over here? I don't know how close it is. 5 meters, 10 meters, whatever it is, in range where if that Demogorgon comes out of that portal, I may be in trouble. Okay, do I take the time to seal that? Do I go oblivious while I'm doing it and potentially get hit? Or do I just work on this gen? Do I hammer it out? Do I try to get done with it? That's a fun
Old Colin colors, I agree.
That's what I like to see from powers. Overall, I do think this is just a really, really well-designed killer, and you could make a great case for it being number 1. I love just about everything about the Demogorgon and its power. And before we get to number 1, I do just want to remind you, if you're enjoying this, please do subscribe. It'd mean a lot.
Yes, you should.
I will give you a crisp
content made by somebody else. Please do.
Thank you. And at number 1, we have the Oni. Now, it should be no secret.
I do like Oni, but
I love the Oni. The Oni is an awesome killer, and though I am tragically boosted and trashed with him, I think he's great. I still love this killer. And I think a lot of survivors do as well, despite how strong Oni is. I think a lot of people like facing the Oni because Oni...
Until they start doing that 180 flick stuff. Yes. That's a little asterisk. Until they start doing that like 180 flick stuff, yeah, I 1000% agree. Oni's great. Until they start doing that 180 flick stuff, I'm just like...
is all the fun of going up against the shape, but with a lot less of the BS, like the tombstone or like the perma tier 3. The only real comparable thing there, I guess, would be that bad players can still feed his power.
Yeah, so if you don't have a free throw early,
touch you once. Well, the Dwight on your team isn't very good at looping, and now the Oni has.
Or if you stay grouped up and he gets a double hit, ooh. Yeah, that's an RIP for that match.
I guess you're on the menu. But outside of that, yeah, it's really a lot of the fun of facing Myers, which, by the way, Myers is a lot
of fun. You're right.
But again, you're not going to get tombstoned, which that alone elevates the Oni.
It's not even like that creepy evening, like that Twilight that they put into Texas Chainsaw. Like, it's not even that. Like, it's quite literally just like 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Like,
also elevating the Oni would
they did not do it justice.
Insanely high skill ceiling, because if you watch high level Onis play, it's just remarkable. I mean, this is a killer that basically asks you to be as daring as possible, to really go for it. You are going to start the game.
Dude, it's raining and I can smell it.
Helpless.
I love the smell of rain.
If you can just nick that first survivor, just get the blood flowing. Suddenly, Oni just got a lot more dangerous. He may not be there yet, but it's coming. It's going to happen.
He's coming.
And when it does, only the strong shall survive. This is such a blast to find yourself in this position, one way or the other, whether you're the Oni or you're the survivors. And by the way, if I'm the Oni, as you can tell from the background footage, nobody's actually in any danger, but maybe the walls. Maybe I'll hit the walls and nobody else. But overall, yeah, there's just something so exciting about hearing the Oni.
Yeah, I don't know. I think
he enters
Oni's fine.
His blood fury.
I think the only thing I don't about a huge fan of is the 180 flick stuff, where he can unlock his
that's lost a lot
intended restrictions.
It can be genuinely terrifying to go up against an Oni, which is just awesome. Now, that being said, skillful looping from the survivors can make the Oni's early game brutal. There is meaningful and purposeful gameplay here on both sides, because if
which is atypical, it's inverted. Typically, you only throw pallets when you're injured, or you're supposed to anyway. People do whatever the heck they want. But like ideally, if you're trying to be conservative of pallets, you throw them while you're injured, not while you're healthy. But you do the reverse with Oni, and it's a thing you got. You can learn and learn better is to do the opposite and throw while healthy to deny him his power as long as possible. So he only has like 1 or 2 blood furies near the end of the match that he may scuff, right? That's kind of like, it's, there's meaningful counterplay there.
Good.
Yeah, it's really cool. He also just punches walls. It's very neat.
Power. I mean,
him and Freddy have like the best breakable wall break animations.
Really good team. You may legitimately have 3 to 4 gens pop before you get that first demon dash. Now, is that what a top tier Oni is going to do? Probably not. However, up against a top tier Swift, yeah, maybe. And that means that Oni is going to have to try to make the absolute most out of his demon dash, which is just so exciting. It's such a cool way.
Nobody else just roll, but he's like
becomes absolutely busted, absolutely terrifying, but only for short durations.
Not nearly as cool.
And again, unlike Myers, he can't just unalive you instantly, which is awesome. I like that. So yeah, I really like about Oni. I really like a lot about Oni. The boomer bust nature of him makes him fun for both sides. Yeah, there are going to be some games that are just naturally rough. Some games where the Oni slugs you out and it's no fun for anybody. I get that, but I don't know. I don't think that's enough to really dock.
Okay, but hear me out. The idea of like Nemesis taking like 3 years to punch a breakable wall is kind of funny. Like, why has he got to think about it that hard? Right? Like, Oni goes right to town. He starts punching it right away till it breaks. Oni's like, Nemesis walks up like, door in the way. Like, why did it take him so long? Like, what's he thinking about while he's staying there for like a full second before he actually punches the door?
Have fun games against literally every killer, and more often
reconsidering his life choices up until that point.
But those are my thoughts. I am very curious to hear what you think. Who did I not put on here that I should have? I almost put the twins on here just to keep up my love for the twins, but I thought there might be a legitimate revolution.
I think the twins are too poorly designed. It's just that they're buggy as hell.
The twins should have been here. Let me know. If you think somebody else should have been here, I am eager to hear. Or, hey, food. Why'd you put this one in there? Specifically Cinnabite. I think there are going to be some people who strongly disagree with me. But anyway, either way, I appreciate you watching this video. I thank you so much for sticking around to the end.
I think the big ones that I was looking for were like Huntress, Demo, and Oni. Those are like the main 3 that I was like, that popped in my head when you said that. And obviously they're on there. Obviously I feel like I said with the Cenobite, very aggressively anti-solo queue. And I think a character that preys on already one of the weakest roles in the game is kind of ick. Pig, he definitely, vastly overstated the power of Pig's M2. which is why Pig is that high. If Pig's stealth and M2 did more, I would agree. Matter of fact, I feel like buffing her stealth aspect would be the way to kind of bring her out of bottom 5 and bring her into like mid to like mid C, like high C tier. Make her stealth actually worthwhile. Wesker should replace Pig. Yeah, I think Wesker's more well designed than Pig is. I think there's just some issues with like the hindered and like his ability to tunnel really well using Killer Instinct. But the rest of him's fine. Just the rest of him's really fine. So, yeah. Yeah, I agree with most of that. I don't think there's anybody left out that I'd be like, no, wait, they're perfectly well designed. I'm like, no, you hit my big 3. I would have probably put, I agree with him though. You would expect me to be like, no, Billy's really well designed, but like he's really weak. Like that high of a skill curve for that little of a return, that's kind of not worth it. I love him to death. He's my boy. I love my Billy, but like the high skill cap in the game just to be like low B tier, high C tier is that's not worth it. That's not worth it at all. That is poor design. Poor guy. So yeah, I agree. I agree that Billy shouldn't be on there as much as I love him. Yeah. Let's move on. Let's keep going.